Paul, Fáilte Ireland have just finished a series of roadshows around the country with the industry. What's the mood of industry like this year, and what's your view of what 2023 might hold?
Yeah, we had a great week last week, Owen, where we took our plans on the road, as it were, and went around to about 9 different locations all around the country where we showed what our plans were to support those regions, and that was in addition to the to kind of a national virtual industry briefing. We had about 1,000 industry attend our roadshows in person, and in total, and about 1,400 were on our virtual session last Monday morning. So it was great engagement from industry, and great to get to meet so many people out on the roads. The mood is generally very positive. In terms of very high level of confidence in the demand that's out there. Obviously the concerns around costs are still there for businesses. Concerns around some of the supply constraints are still there. But overall, I would say, in terms of the mood is quite optimistic. When we look forward out to our projections for 2023, we talk about opportunities on the demand side, challenges on the supply side, and the need to manage all of those through the lens of sustainability.
Yeah.
On the demand side, we're looking, air access is currently projecting to be about 3% higher than 2019 levels, so our best ever year for air access for international visitors. And that's
a remarkable recovery, isn't it, considering where we were only 12 months ago?
Yeah, it is, and huge credit, I think, to the aviation industry, to our airports, to the Department of Transport for all of the aviation and the aviation recovery task force, that was in place, that that they really have got aviation up and running again really quickly, and I say kind of bigger than ever. So that's super to see. And that sets us up well for overseas visitors.
Yeah. Normally, in a normal year, whatever a normal year is at this stage, you'd expect, if air access was good, you'd expect demand to follow, and you'd expect a pretty good year. But it's obviously all these supply constraints that could be a roadblock.
Yeah, I think obviously that we've got two significant supply side constraints. I think that will dampen down our ability to get back to 2019 levels overall in tourism. One, as we're all aware, is the accommodation side, where we're looking at maybe 25 to 30% of tourist accommodation not being available for tourists this year, because of it being used for humanitarian purposes. And then the other issue, of course, is car hire, where things are looking a little bit better than last year, I think, as things stand at the moment. But the car rental sector is still certainly forecasting that they're not going to be at or even near 2019 levels of car fleet for the summer season. So those are two things that will certainly, I think, hold us back this year.
And there's no magic wand that can be waved at the car hire side of the house, because obviously that requires kind of production and a pipeline of fleets and stuff. But on the tourism accommodation side of the house, if there was an alternative accommodation for those refugees and asylum seekers, then more hotels and guest houses could be freed up for tourism purposes, couldn't they?
Yes, they could, but I think your phrase of "there's no magic wand" applies equally to the accommodation challenge. We'd like to see more of those seeking that type of protection being accommodated outside of the tourism, outside of the core tourism stock. But look, there has been, and there continues to be, lots of work being done to try and do that. But when we're doing this in the context of a nation that has a housing crisis in the first instance, and in terms of our ability to build and develop alternative places for those people to stay, that's obviously proving really challenging. So I think that is with us for a while.
And I mean, it's one of the things that we're all aware of, is that this gruesome war in Ukraine is not going to end anytime soon by the looks of it. So it's going to rumble on and on. So probably this situation of Ukrainian refugees needing humanitarian support from Ireland, which is only right and proper, that will be an ongoing requirement of the state for some time. So I presume Fáilte are working very closely with the Department of Integration and so on, keeping a very close eye on numbers of bedrooms taken out of commission and so on.
Yeah, I mean, we're monitoring that situation really closely in terms of looking at a county by county. We're trying to get data at a more granular level than that to understand what that impact is, because we are very conscious of the impact that it has on the wider tourism economy. So our research shows that for every euro a visitor spends in accommodation, they spend €2.50 in other parts of the tourism economy. So, in terms of, whereas the accommodation businesses will be fine because they're obviously getting the government check for the for hosting those refugees. All of those other businesses that rely on tourists, the activity providers, the attractions, the cafes, the bars, the craft shops, etc., etc.
Yeah.
All of those businesses, they will really feel in those areas where there's a lot of visitor stock gone out of the visitor market. Then they will really feel that impact, and we're in terms of monitoring that and feeding that analysis into government and making sure the government understand the scale of that impact.
Yeah, great. Another supply issue, I suppose, is the self-catering or the short-term tourist-let sector, because there's a new register, I think, coming into effect very soon, and that Fáilte Ireland are managing. But it will reduce the stock, won't it, particularly in urban centres of short-term tourist-lets?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I suppose that the register itself won't reduce the stock, and what the register is aimed to do is to capture, in terms of the stock that's there. And what will happen, I suppose, is that the visibility of that stock will lead to clarity around what properties have the appropriate planning permission and what properties don't. And as that gets clarified, we will find that there are certain properties that shouldn't really be in the tourism space, that are currently in the tourism space, that will move back into the residential market. Now, really important, I suppose, in that context is, and we fought really hard to get what is a 6-month clarification period built into that proposal. And that will get us across this summer in terms of, that gives both property owners and local authorities time after the introduction of the register to clarify the position with regards to the requirement for planning or not for a particular property. So, really important, I suppose, that everyone involved in tourism and in the industry support the work we're trying to do here. In order to, because we do have a very balanced, fair approach to this that does give people that opportunity and that time to resolve those issues, and in terms of that, I suppose requires the support and cooperation of everyone.
Yeah. Just moving on, there was a massive win just before Christmas, I think, of just transition funding from the EU, as I understand it. I think it's a sum of in the region of 70 million euros, so it's huge money, and it's going to be channeled through Fáilte Ireland and managed by Fáilte Ireland. And spent, as I understand it, on the Midlands to try and create more sustainable tourism experiences. Tell us a little bit about that. I know you may not have all the detail just yet.
Yeah, so I mean, the Just Transition program is effectively to help the transition of those economies that relied on not particularly green activity to make a transition to the green economy. And obviously, peat harvesting and burning peat for power generation, is not particularly environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
And so this fund is designed to help those communities to transition to a more green economy. And Fáilte Ireland then put together a proposal into that fund for 68 million euros, which we're delighted was approved. There was actually 2 separate proposals, but the combined impact is 68 million. And that is funded partially by the European Union and partially by the Irish government. And that, will really be, I think it may be one of, if not the biggest kind of single investment in tourism development infrastructure.
I imagine so.
Certainly that I've heard of or that I can recall. So it's a massive win. It will make a huge difference to the development of tourism in the Midlands region, and we'll be using that to develop a network of trails. The bogs will be re-wetted, and re-wetting bogs, turns them from carbon emitting into carbon absorbing.
Yeah.
So hugely important from an environmental point of view, but also will make them more attractive from a visitor point of view, etc. So we'll have a network of cycle and walking trails that will be part of the development. We'll be looking to develop sustainable alternative accommodation types in the area, because we do need more accommodation in the area, and also working with businesses in terms of smart and sustainable, so both the digital and the sustainability transition, helping businesses in those areas and growing businesses in those areas in order to meet the visitor needs there. So really exciting. We're still working through the details of the plan on that. We're working with key partners in all of the local authorities. Bord na Móna are obviously a really important partner. It's such a big landowner in that area, Waterways Ireland, etc. So we're working with all of the state partners and landowners to develop a plan for that, and we should, within the next couple of months, we should be giving some more detail on that.
Yeah.
Time is of the essence here. It's a really challenging project because the rules of the funding mean it all has to be drawn down by the end of 2026.
Yeah.
So hugely a huge amount of work that Orla Carroll and Paddy Matthews and Fiona Monaghan and various others in Fáilte Ireland are leading out on.
You mentioned time there, and I imagine some of those concepts that you talk about will require planning and so on. So there's lots of kind of potential obstacles and kind of hurdles that have to be overcome.
Yeah, we're going to be very, very busy working through all of those and trying to work at pace and to in order to get through all of those we can. And obviously we'll be scoping it on the basis of doing what we can within the time frame we can.
Yeah. But as you say, it's really exciting. It's a huge win, and it could really give Ireland a competitive advantage, because we could look at the Midlands or the Ireland's hidden heartlands or whatever region it's going to be focused on, and we could nearly portray that as best in class for sustainable tourism.
Yeah, I think certainly in terms of what we're going to have at the end of this is going to be an incredibly sustainable tourism offering, a regenerative tourism offering, and I think that in itself is going to attract visitors. They're going to want to come to hear that story, to hear the story of the transition years, as well as enjoy the landscape and the offering that's there as well. So very exciting. It's going to be predominantly in Ireland's hidden heartlands. There will be a little bit of it as well that will kind of touch into Ireland's ancient east. So it does span those two areas, but predominantly it's in hidden heartlands.
Great. The VAT was extended. The VAT at 9% was extended last week for another 6 months, which we all welcome. But there's lots of sort of cost pressures on the sector. You mentioned earlier about the mood in your roadshows. There was a lot of talk about cost of business and so on. That obviously pushes price up. We're in an inflationary cycle. We're all worried about Ireland's value for money. Are you getting any soundings from the international market or the domestic market about our value for money, and how can we protect it? We're back to a magic wand again. I wish we had a magic wand for all these issues, Paul, but is there any way we can maintain our value for money or make sure it doesn't slide off a cliff?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, first of all, on the VAT, I know that's been, really welcomed by industry. Important to recognize, I suppose, that once again, our analysis shows that the industry lost 12 billion euros during COVID. Now, the comprehensive and really welcome package of government supports put about 6 billion back in to keep businesses alive. But it was still a net loss of 6 billion across the tourism economy at the revenue level. So, having the VAT extended for another 6 months does help kind of businesses get back on their feet after that, and to rebuild reserves, etc., and rebuild a healthy balance sheet. So I think that's been very welcome. And but now I suppose, it does really put the onus on the industry to do everything they can in that context to offer value for money. I know people talk about the supply and demand, and when demand exceeds supply, price goes up. It does, but it takes individuals to make those decisions. I am very worried about our long-term reputation value for money. We are seeing, the early signs of concern there, international markets, etc. Prices are going up everywhere, but they are going up more in Ireland. I know there's more cost pressures on business in Ireland, but really important that everyone in the industry works together to protect, really importantly, our reputation internationally as an industry, but also in addition to that, the reputation of the industry within Irish society, in terms of, and the reputation of the industry within the wider society. We do not want tourism to be viewed, for example, the way the banks were viewed after the financial crash, etc. If the industry gets a bad reputation for value for money within the domestic market and within the stakeholders, it will begin to be tarnished like that. It'll be difficult to attract people to work in the industry, and we really know we need that. I remember people not wanting to work for the banks after the financial crisis. We don't want tourism to have that kind of reputation. So really important that we retain the industry's reputation amongst all of the stakeholders here in Ireland, and and Irish society in general. Who knows when the next crisis is around the corner, when the industry will need government support. I suppose those individual pricing decisions, and particularly those decisions on, last available rooms or on peak weekends or stuff like that, where some operators have in the past really pushed the boat out in terms of maximizing every possible cent they could make. And that is not good for the long term. So, everyone's got to make sure to take our collective long-term prosperity and put that ahead of short-term individual opportunism.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And Paul, the domestic market, it's very important to Irish tourism. You do a lot of sort of domestic marketing. You also do a lot of research within the domestic market. What's your sense of it this year?
Yeah, just looking back on last year, I suppose, first of all, we were absolutely delighted with the results. We had a really strong domestic market last year. Pre-COVID, when we look at the percentage of trips taken by Irish residents, about 51% of them were taken domestically and 49% went overseas. Last year, that had grown to 57% of trips taken by Irish residents were domestic trips, which is significant growth on pre-COVID levels. Particularly pleasing, I suppose, as travel restrictions open, we all saw how busy our airports got with people running for the sun, etc. So for the domestic tourism market to retain 57% of Irish residents' trips was a really great result. And as we look into this year, the intent to take a trip domestically is still quite strong. It's up at 2019 levels, same level it was this time in 2019, and 2019 was a good year domestically. So that's looking positive. Domestically, particularly important, I suppose, as the UK market remains challenged, the regional and seasonal spread of domestic visitors is even more important, because the UK market is a bit more regionally and then seasonally dispersed than the North American market, etc. So really, really important that people keep that focus on domestic visitors, keep working on those relationships that they built previously. We're going to keep supporting. We have a really strong domestic campaign again this year, and with all of our digital work, our weather sponsorship, our keep discovering TV ads, etc. Really strong, and we're going to be targeting that support into regions that need it. Obviously, we spoke earlier about capacity constraints, and we're going to make sure that we're really agile in our domestic marketing, that we're supporting those regions where there is capacity to try and keep that occupancy as high as we can and keep visitors coming in. So it's another really important year for domestic tourism.
Fáilte Ireland obviously have a whole raft of responsibilities, but one of the sort of exciting areas, although you'll tell me that all areas are exciting, but one of the more exciting areas is the whole idea of new product development. We saw it last year with Behind the Trees at Avondale and Strokestown Park, and some really exciting things. What's new or kind of upcoming this year or next that could transform Irish tourism to the better?
We still have a whole range of projects that are in the pipeline. I think about 50 large ones around the country, all coming on stream at different stages. Just later this week, I'm going down to Mount Congreve with Minister Martin and Minister Humphreys to open Mount Congreve House and Gardens, which is on the Waterford Greenway, which is a fantastic old state house, and for the first time the house will be accessible to visitors, but also the gardens have been massively invested in and transformed as well. So that's a really exciting project, part of a cluster of things in the southeast that will really build out the offering there, and right on the Waterford Greenway. So it's a fantastic kind of complementary product to the Greenway in Waterford. So that's very exciting. Then in a few weeks' time, we'll be officially opening a new national surf centre in Strandhill, which will provide kind of world-class facilities for both surfers and surf operators, be it kind of surf schools and board rental, etc. And that will really give a focal point around the brilliant surf offering that there is in Strandhill, and the world-renowned surf offering there is in Strandhill. And we'll have the facilities meet the nature that's there, I suppose. Nature's given us this fantastic surfing, and we haven't had in Strandhill, and we haven't had the facilities to match that. Now we'll have the facilities to match that, which is excellent. Also in Sligo, a pretty transformative urban development project is the Queen Maeve Square that's going to be opening up in Sligo to facilitate a fabulous public realm space, outdoor entertainment space, etc. So it will really transform the look and feel of Sligo town and make it a really nice destination. Enhance it already is, but further enhance it as a really nice destination town. So some very exciting things happening.
Great, and we look forward to seeing the photo op of you on a surfboard in Strandhill. Paul, thank you so much, and thanks for all the hard work you and your colleagues do in Fáilte Ireland. And yes, I think we all agree that 2023 will be challenging on a number of fronts, but if we can keep that sort of recovery trend going, I think we'll start recovering some of the losses after all the difficult COVID years. So thanks a lot for all your hard work.
Thank you, Owen.